Hello, everybody. I'm Jackie K. Cooper, and it is Tell a Story Thursday. And that's when I read a story out of one of my previous books. My newest book is The Wisdom of Winter. You can get it through Amazon and through your local bookstores. Go get it right after you hear me read this story. But I'm going to be reading a story from one of my previous books. This one's coming from Journey of a Gentle Southern Man, which was my first book. And this is one of my favorite chapters out of that book because I wrote it several years ago when my sons were still living at home and my father was still alive, and it's a story about him. So it's called Sleeping in a Car Gives Driver a Vote of Confidence. The other afternoon, my youngest son and I, Sean, and I went to a movie in Macon. As soon as we were on the highway, he went to sleep. And he slept until we got to the theater. Now, some fathers might be offended by the fact that their son chose to sleep rather than converse. I didn't. That showed me another way he is just like me. I always had a thing about sleeping in cars too. From earliest childhood on, put me in the car with my father and I went to sleep. It was the best sleep I had too. An instant deep sleep of complete relaxation. I would get in the car, choose my spot in the back seat, argue over it with my brother, settle down and listen to a few bits of conversation between my parents, and off I would go. No rockabye needed for me, just the hum of the engine and the vibrations of the wheels. Hard as it may seem to some of you today to comprehend, we didn't have a car when I was small. I was well up in age before we made that kind of purchase. And we were not one of the poverty level families. We just didn't have a car for pleasure. We had my daddy's bread truck for emergencies, and neighbors had cars for everything else. When I was small, we usually went to my grandparents' home in Gadsden, Alabama every summer. If my daddy wasn't going with us, we took the train. It was an early morning train called the Silver Bullet, and it sped through the night faster than the speed of sound, or at least it seemed that way to me. If my daddy was going with us, we borrowed a car. I can remember we always got up early in the morning to start before the sun came up, and it got awfully hot. There was a feeling to the world at that time of the morning, and it combined with my sleepiness to all seem unreal. Usually Mother didn't make me put shoes on, and Daddy would carry me to the car so that the early morning dew wouldn't wet my feet. I would still be in a state of semi-sleep and might not even remember moving from bed to car when I really woke up. That usually would not be until we reached Columbia, South Carolina, where we would have our breakfast. The strongest recollection I have of those car rides is my feeling of complete security. I was enclosed in a car with my daddy at the wheel, and nothing and nobody was going to harm me. The family unit was complete and encapsulated in that vehicle. There was no work drawing Daddy away from us, and no school or friends to make me wish I was somewhere else. Today when we take a trip, I usually do the driving. Sometimes my wife drives, but I never sleep. She is as good a driver as I am and maybe more cautious. But I don't get sleepy, and I don't sleep. I don't have any friends whose driving puts me to sleep. I'm always wide awake and ready to talk, sightsee, or whatever. But last summer we went to the mountains with my folks. For some reason, we went to their house in Clinton, South Carolina, and rode up together. After we'd been on the road a while, Daddy said he would drive some. I'm sure my wife would have preferred me to keep driving, as my father at that time was 73 years old, and he tires easily. But it was his car, and he had the right to drive if he wanted to. I got into the back seat with my wife and kids, and we started off again. We hadn't gone 5 miles before I fell asleep. I slept until we got to our destination. It was that same deep sleep I had had in the car with him as a child. It was a sleep of absolute security and trust. So you can see how I am complimented when my son Sean goes to sleep when I drive. It means he trusts me and is completely secure. I'll do everything I can to keep him that secure at home, on the road, wherever, just like my daddy did and does for me. That's one of my favorite stories. It was a pleasure to share that with y'all. But this is Jackie K. Cooper sending love and hope.